Welcome back. Big tech is back in the spotlight as the Justice Department says it is working with a group of state attorneys general on an antitrust investigation into the industry. This coming after the DOJ launched its own review of tech giants like Google and Facebook. Is all of this scrutiny justified? Cybersecurity expert and attorney Leeza Garber is here now with me to talk more about that. So what do you think?
Great to see you. This is a hugely expanding issue, and we have different parts of the United States federal and state government looking into what Apple, Amazon, Facebook, and Google are doing. And this comes on the heels of the EU already investigating these kind of antitrust actions, and it's so important that we do this to protect consumers.
Yeah, I mean, well, look, the competition is slim when you look at competitors to a Google. Google has, what, 90% of market share?
There are no competitors.
Right?
Yeah, that's the funny thing. I mean, you look at it, there's really no feasible alternative to Facebook. Basically, if you're on a social media platform, you're on Facebook. Since they acquired Instagram and WhatsApp, how do you control something like that? It's a behemoth. But at the same time, the way our antitrust law is written, there's really no fiscal part to that for consumers because it's, quote unquote, technically free, even though they're trafficking in our data. So it's very difficult to apply these laws to these kind of conceptual tech giants.
Yeah, I remember back in the day when Microsoft was the target of antitrust regulators because it was so big and also a similar situation in terms of its competitive reach. It was heavy fines. It was a lot of backlash. The investors reacted. Is that what you're expecting here? Do you think investors start reacting? How significant will this be for these companies?
It's going to be significant, but in general, the scale of what's significant is changing, right? Because you look at the FTC fine for Facebook's privacy violations, which was $5 billion. Some people called it astounding and influential. Some people called it a drop in the bucket because compared to their proceeds and everything else, it's a very minimal percentage, and it's really a slap on the wrist. So how we go about kind of handling these antitrust issues, there are lots of different ways it could occur, but it definitely will have some sort of fiscal effect.
I wonder if it's, in addition to antitrust, you also have the conversation of conservatives getting censored and whether or not that's part of the upset on the part of regulators in Washington. Certainly the president has spoken about this.
Definitely, and you touch on a really important point, which is for so many of these giants, we can't see the inner goings-on of Google and how they rank these results. We can't see what Facebook is really doing with our data, and that's part of the problem as well. Antitrust actions might help with maybe dismantling some of these things. What does that look like? Maybe it's unbundling acquisitions like Facebook from WhatsApp or Instagram. But for Amazon, for instance, its selling platform, they're also selling their own goods. So there are all these different ways to look at it, but Google definitely will have to deal with the bias problem as a separate issue.
I'll tell you, Europe has been so much more significant in terms of its oversight and heavy-handedness as opposed to the U.S.
Definitely. It's because last year they enacted the General Data Protective Regulation, the GDPR. They really look at privacy as a human right, like Apple always likes to say, although they've come into some problems with that issue recently. Yeah. But the EU has definitely led the way in terms of protecting user privacy and protecting consumers online, and that's what the U.S. really needs to catch up to do.
Yeah, we'll see if the U.S. ends up getting close to where Europe is. That would be significant for these companies. That would be a big deal.
It would be a
negative
huge deal, but it's going to take a really long time, and what that's going to look like is still really up in the air.
Leeza, it's great to see you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for joining us this morning. Love having you. All right.